Hey everyone, I'm Chris Lesniak,
And I'm Rob Byer, and this is.
the Debate Math Podcast. Well, hello and welcome to our summer hot seat series.
We thought we'd change things up a little bit for the summer months, offering something different.
Don't worry, our regular debates will be back in the fall, but for now, we wanted to put some educators with interesting ideas or strong opinions in a hot seat where they will share their thoughts, and Rob and I will play the role of cross-examining them a little bit.
These are topics where someone has some strong ideas, but we may not be able to get a group together for a full fledged debate. So, our host role is now to be a bit of a devil's advocate.
And quick note, regardless of our personal thoughts on the topic, Rob and I will be pushing back on the ideas presented. So our questions do not necessarily reflect our personal views.
And with that, let's get into our first debate. Our very first hot seat guest is here arguing the statement, math is dead. He is an author, speaker, math storyteller, Horace educator, and you may know him from his books Pie of Life, Math Recess, or Chasing Rabbits, Music, Freak, and Geek. It's Sunil Singh. Hey, Sunil, how are you?
Hi, Rob. I'm doing really good. Yeah, I had that porous educator recently because I just love the word porous, like a sponge in terms of absorbing stuff. And I think that's I've always liked that adjective, and so yeah, I consider myself porous educator, but just a porous person, just absorbing ideas and stuff. So yeah, porous educator for sure.
Well, can you tell our listeners where you are and what your current role is?
Yeah, I'm currently in Toronto. Been in Toronto for since 1970, since I was born in Australia, and my parents came to Canada in 1970. We're located in Toronto. Still here. I work primarily as a consultant, doing professional development, speaking literally all over the world. I'm doing a keynote in Melbourne in September, and I'm really in the one area which it's like an empty parking lot. I speak, I think, almost exclusively in the area of math history, storytelling, narrative, culture responsive, and anti-racist math education. So that's what I do, and that's what I think I've been doing for the most part since I left teaching in 2013.
Very good. And so the question we want to ask all our guests is, when did math first become controversial to you?
Uh, Probably my first week of teaching. And I mean, first week of teaching in high school, which was 1997, not so much at community college. I taught at a community college. But once I got into the public education K to 12 system and I got to see, the topics we're going to be teaching and how we're going to teach it, um, right away, I don't know if it was my punk background, but something very reflexive went off. And I actually, when I left my first teaching job after 1 year, and I already had this idea that, you know what, I don't know if how long it's gonna last. Honestly, I felt like that. And when I got surplus, I got bumped to another school, my second school, my second year, and I'm getting my mailbox first. And there's a teacher who will turn out to be my, mentor and friend. And I just ranted on him. And I didn't know he came from like a leadership position. I didn't know who he was. And all I did was listen. And he didn't listen to reply. And both of you will appreciate this. He listened to understand. And so I was ranting right away about the state of mathematics education right from the get-go. I couldn't fully articulate what I felt, but I felt this sort of unease, rage, or being boxed in, and you know, uh, good or for bad, right from the get-go.
Well, thanks for that. And with that, let's get into your debate. We begin with an opening statement from our guest. Sunil, you have 2 minutes to present your arguments that math is dead, and your time begins now.
Well, I'm glad you said 2 minutes. Part of me was debating, should I use 30 seconds for a moment of silence, uh, or just a pause? and I'm pausing right now as we speak. So the idea of mathematics is dead was actually introduced by the person I just talked about ranting to, Peter Harrison. Uh, he told me that 20 years ago. So it's not as provocative as it sounds. But when I mean mathematics is dead, I don't mean it's dead to me. Uh, I mean it's dead in the education world. I don't mean it's dead on YouTube, where you have these great YouTube channels like, Numberphile, or, Vsauce, or Veritasium, which has 50 million subscribers. Veritas in Latin means truth. And all the wonderful books which have come out recently, Sarah Hart, Once Upon a Prime. No, I mean it's dead in the education world. And the best way I can sort of frame it, and then we can sort of drill down, is in 2017, Junaid Mubin, who I've written some blogs with, who has a PhD from Oxford in mathematics and a master's of ed from Harvard. He wrote a blog saying that teaching mathematics without history is soulless. Okay? Now you can teach it without history, but what he's saying is if you do teach it with history, it is soulless. And the quote that I want to sort of pair that with is with author Sue Monk Kidd. And I've used this quote many times. And she says, stories have to be told or they die. And when they die, we don't know who we are or why we're here. So linking the soulless part with that general quote, because history is about telling stories, then the vector where mathematics is going in education, if it's not dead, it's going towards its death. So that's my opening statement.
Okay, thank you. So you're starting. I know you say not provocative, but there's some lingering bit there that math
Yeah,
is dead in education. So can you start by telling us more, like, what about education? Because you
yeah,
said like online it's
sure.
not dead. What about education or teaching? Do you really see, like, what are some examples of what you see that really is bugging you about it?
Yeah. I mean, again, I like to reference history. And so there's a quote I came across recently by the great Bertrand Russell, who, mathematician, philosopher, educator, writer, who co-wrote Principia Mathematica with Alfred North Whitehead. But he wrote a book called In Praise of Idleness, which came out in 1932. And from that book, he said, there was a time where there was, lightheartedness and play, which to some extent has been inhibited. Remember, this is 1932, has been inhibited by the cult of efficiency. We're in the cult of efficiency. So if you look around in terms of math education, look at the language we're using. It's not student friendly, like, proficiency or agency. These are teacher words. These are words, almost administrative words. These are like higher level words. We're not doing student facing content. We're doing teacher facing pedagogy. And, like there's a great quote by Paul Halmos, the Hungarian mathematician. I think he lived to 90, 2006. He passed away, but he such a simple quote, which was the only way to learn mathematics is to do mathematics. So who is doing mathematics? Like, everyone's talking around it, but who's actually doing mathematics and doing questions for the first time and sharing, never mind their solution, but their, oh, I didn't get it. So that's when I say mathematics is dead, because the actual mathematics, there's no critique of the quality of it. There's critique of how we should teach it. That goes back and forth since, the beginning of time. But no one's talking about the actual mathematics that we do.
So there's a lot there to unpack. So let me follow up
I
with
know.
the idea of efficiency. So I'm guessing you're saying teachers are like moving too quickly through things, like are teaching the algorithm to make it like too straightforward or something for students.
Yeah, that's there's there yeah, I think, but the idea to move towards efficiency or to have everything where there's solutions,
Mm,
to me, that's dangerous, because the thematic development of mathematics has been a slow failure. And a lot of it is about not being able to solve things.
mm.
Like, imagine if students knew that story. Again, the whole idea of stories in mathematics, like they'd feel more relaxed. If students knew that everything they've learned at some point in math history was either poorly understood or not understood at all. And so, this whole thing towards efficiency is more from, like, again, geared and aligned to, well, what's the purpose of mathematics? Well, is the purpose of mathematics for a STEM career, and how am I going to use it in my daily life, and getting good standardized test scores or meeting state requirements and all that. And again, that's fine, but no one's looking at the actual mathematics in terms of what you want to be efficient with. I think efficiency is a great thing. I think, especially as a strategy in mathematics, sometimes brute force, exhaust brute force to get to efficiency. But I think this whole cult of efficiency, which I referenced in the Bertrand Russell quote, is that we're all trying to do things as quickly as possible. We're trying to again, it's all geared to pedagogy, which is teacher facing. Pedagogy is not is not student facing. Content is student facing. It is student friendly. So students aren't interested in efficiency at this point. They're interested in, is that a cool math problem? Is that an idea that I want to get out of my seat and go to the whiteboard for? Like, that's the first do not pass go, do not collect $200 thing we should do. What is sitting in front of them that is so captivating or is interesting?
So let me just follow up with that. So what do you say when to teachers who just feel like stuck because they have the state standards, the district mandates, the school rules, like all this content they have to
Yeah.
cover and all this stuff. So how do they uh, not focus on the efficiency if they feel like overwhelmed with all this stuff?
Well, I think that's a great question. I think, first of all, so much empathy goes out to teachers, especially, since the pandemic happened. And, you know, uh, it's a tough job being a teacher, just juggling all the things you said. Okay. Because really, there's a little Maslow's hierarchy of needs happening in terms of, here's what I need to attend to. Now, you can still attend to that. And I'm not saying don't. What I'm saying is, are you aware of what you are maybe going to juggle with? Like, here is the content. I'm not even saying possessing content. I'm saying having content curiosity. And all I'm saying is all this, and again, this is where math education, to me, you got to walk the walk. If you're going to talk about joy, beauty, and wonder, where is it? Okay. You don't get to talk about it if it's not in it. So what I would say to teachers who are overwhelmed and whatever, no, you got to keep doing what you got to do. What I'm saying is take a time out. Can I show you, or can mathematics show you some of the mathematics that should be installed, whether it's number theory, graph theory, game theory, utility, probability, even chess, poker, whatever, and then go, oh, you know what? I wish I could put that in. That's the starting point. I wish I could put that in. For me, it's important to get everybody on board, not just the people who are already sort of, okay, yeah, I've got creative ways to do it. But even the teacher who's like drowning in all the administrative stuff and all that, they go, yeah, I wish I could do that. Okay, that's the starting point. Because at least now you're wrestling with it. And then maybe next year or whatever, there's a Trojan horse way where you can bring in something really cool, right? So it's more of a philosophical, yeah, I wish I could do that.
So I want to go back to something that you said during your opening statement, and then also you just referenced again, talking about pedagogy. When we talk about like the beauty and the wonder and the joy, um, I think of pedagogy almost like an art form, which also in like an art we have the joy and the beauty and the wonder. Um, so wouldn't that be something that like for teachers that pedagogy should drive this to allow students to unlock the beauty and wonder of mathematics, and you said the word like curiosity, like unlocking that curiosity.
Yeah,
I think Kyle and John talk about the Kyle Pierce and John always
yes,
talk
don't
about,
worry, yeah.
yeah, they talk about sparking curiosity. Like, doesn't pedagogy do that?
Okay, so I'm so glad you brought up, and I would say yes, but here's the thing. And I even caught myself because I've criticized pedagogy, but then I realized there's also good pedagogy and bad pedagogy. Okay. And I'm not saying, okay, there's the one thing we have to understand is we always assume pedagogy, there's one way of thinking about that mathematically. But the pedagogy described in terms of to invoke that kind of thinking actually does exist and did exist Alfred North Whitehead, Aims of Education, 1929, Rhythm of Learning, where he said there was three phases of learning for any subject. There was a stage of romance during childhood, a stage of precision during youth, and a stage of generalization, adulthood. Now we do the last two stages perfectly, precision, dot your I's, cross your T's, and all that sort of stuff that we're doing almost maniacally, but it's still good. A generalization, kids can put all things together. The stage that we do not address and have never addressed is the stage of romance, which is that place of where all it is the curiosity on wonder. You don't have to tie up loose ends. And that stage of romance gets carried into precision, and romance precision gets carried to generalization. So that pedagogy has never been installed. And what have we done? We're doing generalization good. We're doing precision good. We've brought precision down into elementary. And why do you think that kids suffer alienation, anxiety, trauma? Because they can articulate it, but the pedagogy that they should have been given was never given, and hence you have the problem. So yeah, it's been available, but we've never utilized it, because around that time, which Alfred North Whitehead book came out, was also the praise of idleness, which is the whole idea. The cult of efficiency already had its wheels in motions, and now it's like it's like a runaway train. It's like a runaway train.
So is math being dead? It I guess would pedagogy be an accessory to that? Is that like an accessory to murder? Is that
Ab,
how we're looking at
abs,
pedagogy now?
ab, absolutely, absolutely, it's an accessory. Um, Peter Taylor, who was Peter Harrison's mentor, and he's still teaching at Queen's University in Kingston, 2.5 hours east of Toronto. He said it so amazingly well. Like I think 5 years ago, I came across this. He basically said that the first stage, a precursor to anxiety, is alienation. Alienation occurs prior to anxiety. We check out of mathematics first, and anxiety builds in because then the topics get ramped up and we're missing things. And of course, testing gets ramped up, the anxiety sets in. But the alienation is what comes in right, like probably as early as grade 2 or 3. And so the pedagogy that we put in, which is this one, whatever you want to call it, has been very detrimental. And to me, the sad part is, like we have these interventions, overcoming math anxiety, like as though math anxiety is fucking expected. What kind of shit show are you running where anxiety is expected? And you're willing to take this as some sort of tax so that the other 40, 50% or whatever students do well? No, like that's not acceptable. And that's what I'm saying is when like my own two kids, they loved math when they were young. I knew they were going to hate it. Nothing I could do. There was going to be no intervention. There was no going to be Sunil stories or whatever, because I knew the system would override whatever I could do individually. And they both ended up hating math. And my daughter suffered, severe anxiety, depression because of it. So that's why mathematics is dead. And the pedagogy that we're doing is actually enforcing it.
So when not to harp on this idea
Yeah,
of pedagogy, and you talked about like maybe going all the way down to second grade. What about like with kindergarten, first and second
yeah,
grade, especially if they're not departmentalized, they're all self-contained classrooms where
yeah.
reading is the focus, and all their training leading up to that being a teacher is the focus.
Mhm.
Is there a problem there with like maybe does the pedagogy start to really take a turn at the younger levels, or is it more at the older grade levels? Like where does it start to take a turn, or is it even back to like pre-service teachers and the textbooks that they have? Like how deep is this actually going?
Well, let me answer that question with this, and I think it will maybe not directly answer it, but I think, like everything that I'm saying, I think where, again, my frustration came through there is because so much of this is achievable. This isn't, so what I'm going to say to, like, elementary, grade 1, grade 2, grade 3. Suppose there was two teachers that my kids could have for third grade or second grade, but we know it's elementary. I have a choice of two teachers. And one of them actually has a math degree, was a former high school teacher, changed careers, now is in elementary. Good intentions, but really strict, gives a lot of homework, expectations super high. But again, a lot of homework. And then there's another teacher, first year teacher, humanities, doesn't even have a math background. But I'm finding out that what she's going to say when she has her math module, she's going to tell the kids, my kids, this is my first year teaching, third grade, and so which means my first year teaching third grade math. How about we learn third grade math together? My kids will line up overnight to be in that class. Because the disarming effect of learning mathematics overrides content knowledge at that point, and that aligns with the stage of romance. That is so critical, that stage. So there isn't this, like, we put so much pressure on elementary teachers do so much, and they feel, okay, they're inferior to middle school. And, like in terms of the whole, totem pole of it. No, it's like Dan Finkel said, the third bullet point, in his great TED talk, you're not the answer key. I know something extreme like saying, I don't know what 2 + 2 is. Let's go find out together, especially in those early ages, right? And that's so we have all the resource and ideas for this to work. But again, if you put down precision that low and you create this whole idea that kids have to be able to add, subtract 3-digit numbers by this grade, it's already gone off the rails. It's too late. It's too late. It's too late to recover it. Collectively, maybe individually, they have a great grade 8 teacher or high school teacher who's really has a lot of empathy. But no, it's really gone off the rails. And kids will actually spend a lot of energy keeping their anxiety at bay, which is also very detrimental to their own health because they don't want to talk about their anxiety. And, because math is put at such a pedestal and their friends are doing good at math and all that. And let's be honest, even kids, unless you're going into a math degree or engineering field, even kids are doing well in math, can't wait to drop it. It's just a gatekeeper, as you said, algebra 2, before we went on air, like, no, like, yeah. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean, I somewhat agree. I was someone who's good at math and wanted to drop it when I got to college. I was lucky that I had a professor who romanticized it for me a little bit and pulled me back in. But I'm just wondering, in many ways, Rob and I agree with many of the things you said, but I'm just wondering, thinking about what people might say, like, are you being too ideal? Like, there's, again, so many standards, so many things out there. We want to prepare kids for the workforce, to manage their finances. We want them to be good problem solvers. Like, do we have space and time for all of this? Or is this just like a pipe dream that no one's ever going to have time or money or resources for?
That's a good question. Yeah, that's a really good question in terms of time, money, resources. Again, if we haven't referenced math history, and math history tells, like, everyone who entered mathematics prior to public education did it, of their own volition. Like, soon as the first people looked up at the stars, how many are there? How far are they away? Like, this whole romanticization has occurred for thousands of years. Like, some of the applications didn't occur hundreds of years later. Like, we always go, when are we going to apply math? Sometimes we don't know. So all the things in terms of, yes, our society, but some of the things we do in society in terms of prioritizing, like, I love mathematics, I do. But I'm not a big fan of how it gets prioritized over, art, music, drama, literature, history, or geography. Because mathematics should be an interdisciplinary subject. It should weave in through all those subjects. So we have more on-ramps for people. And I think that's why this data science course can be so amazing. For the first time, there's more on-ramps for kids to get excited about mathematics. But, going back to the time, okay, so that's why I always ask teachers when I do workshops, why do you do mathematics? And if the answer is it's your job, then it's your job. There's no right or wrong answers. Where do you do it? It's usually in an office or a den at home, 9 to 5. So really, it's done more from again, a job career point of view. It's not done for, oh, I love mathematics. For most people, it's my job. And then if you're going to have that attitude, then you're probably going to want the same for your kids. Again, the intentions are great, in terms of career and all that. I'm not saying take away those things. I'm just saying at least temper it with what's the internal vector? And the internal vector for mathematics, as history says, it's been on, deathbeds. Ramanujan did some of his greatest mathematics on his deathbed. It's been in concentration camps. Ivan Moscovich has written so many great books. 1950, he spent like 5 different concentration camps in Yugoslavia. Puzzling got him through concentration camps. Suicidal ideation. Tetsuo Miyamoto, who did Ken. I mean, he was so depressed in terms of his math ability, he thought of suicide. Incarceration. Look at all the places where mathematics has been a restorative agency in a bomb. Are we just going to get rid of it? We have to temper it with everything else we have to do. I'm not saying just throw it in there, but we're not even the stage of temperance yet. And because Sumont Kid, those stories are dying, or if not, just dead outright.
So I guess in the spirit of you talking about precision and precision going all the way down to the
Yeah.
primary grade levels, how realistic is all this? I mean, like truly in the current state with what teachers are dealing with what building administrators are dealing with, people who are not able to help with policy and help with change, and we have these testing, whether it's Common Core testing or any type of standardized testing. How realistic is it for teachers to try to focus on curiosity, joy, beauty, wonder of mathematics, and even romanticize it? And what does that even look and sound like in a regular classroom today, if it can even be in a regular classroom?
Well, the way I think it's currently going, it's not realistic at all. Um, and that's why, we have to center mathematics back in our conversations. Like, one of the reasons, well, mathematics is dead. I mean, and everyone would thinks they're doing mathematics and they're talking around mathematics. But again, that Paul Hamlet's quote about, doing mathematics, the reason why we're not doing mathematics, or showing mathematics or interest in mathematical conversations, is because you can't be an expert. So I'm not an expert. Okay? I'll never be an expert. In fact, the more I know, the less I know. And it's like, no. But we're in an age of efficiency, and efficiency means you have to have expertise. So nobody wants to wallow into this space of, maybe content, because you have to be vulnerable. Guess what? As soon as you start doing mathematics, I don't know, like you're going to get a lot of questions wrong. And that's not good branding, because districts and places want solutions. Well, that's where the interest is, that's where the money is. And let's be honest, like that's where it's going. And the delta between who the system is working for in terms of, who's benefiting most and who's benefiting the least, it's going unchecked. And when I say like who's benefiting the least, students of color and maybe, urban schools who, kids they sit in the back row, show up 2-3 times a week. I spent a whole day at a juvenile detention center last summer, mostly 16, 17-year-old male, Latino, a lot of them were gangs. And they're out of the system. But if our mathematics education isn't geared with, just like when you drive, you look so far ahead. If that's not our target audience, the ones who are going to slip away from the system, then what the fuck are we doing? Because you're not for equity. So this is all tied together in terms of, for me, the romance, the beauty, awe, and wonder, not just for the kids, no, for everybody to see it at least, and to begin to bring mathematics and center that slowly back in the conversation, not ham-fisted in that, because right now, it's like almost Shakespearean irony that mathematics is an understudy in its own play. The content curiosity and content critiquing is gone to the sidelines, and now it's all focused on this pedagogy of efficiency and just tightening up standards and all that. We have the science of math, whatever that is, so currently, no, it's not going to work. The only way it's going to work is if we have a pause button and we have places and spaces, maybe like this, or conferences, where we can just have these raw conversations about what do we want and what do we want for our most marginalized, monitorized, and vulnerable kids. Because if we're not interested in those kids, I'm not interested in the conversation.
Thank you for that. I think I have just one last question. Um, suppose you said the starting point for teachers is to just start to say, like, I wish I could.
Yeah.
And so, what if someone is there? What ideas, resources, places to go look something up or read something? What advice would you give to someone who is ready to take some steps forward in this world of creating math more romanticized?
Well, again, there's lots of individual, again, I mean, I have to back it up in terms of actual problem solving. So, I mean, there's some great problems there which by themselves will take you down rabbit holes. There's a great question I do in terms of if you're allowed to climb the stairs, let's say 8 stairs, and you're allowed to climb the stairs, are the either one step or two step, how many different ways can you get up these 8 stairs? And it's always got to add up to eight. It can be one, 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 a whole bunch of ones. It can be a whole bunch of ones, 6 ones, and a jump of two at the end. So a lot of people might think this is combinatorics. No, no, no. But there's obviously a lot of solutions, not a ton. And your gut feel might be 20s, 30s. That's okay. And by brute force, you can actually, get the answer. But we know brute force means you're probably not going to get all the answers. You might duplicate them. But the way which most people, almost nobody will do, because I said 8 steps. Well, why don't you start with one step and then start with two and with three and with one, two, and three? It's just one, two, and three respectively. And when you get to 4 steps, is the first time there's a little bit of a bump because there's 5 different ways to get up 4 steps in terms of one, 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 two, one, but there's 5 ways. And then with five, it's eight. And then everyone's going to recognize, oh, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 3. This is the Fibonacci sequence. And then you go, yeah, but Hemachandra, the Sanskrit poet, discovered it 150 years earlier. So in one problem, you can illustrate the idea, the whole going back to what I said, why uh, understanding the thematic development of mathematics is so important. Because when you have blind spots, you actually can teach things incorrectly. But now that will startle you and go, okay, you know what? You want to, same way you want to spark students' curiosity, you want to spark teachers' curiosity. Like one question, two questions, and they're off in their own rabbit holes, right? So I don't think it takes a lot. I just think it takes the right questions to be positioned, the right grade, if there's a time, and then you just create a momentum, starting from there.
Wonderful. And I think that concludes our questioning round.
We will now end by giving Sunil a few minutes to make his final arguments to you. Go ahead, Sunil.
Okay, so the word final, like, I mean, this is a continuum. I'm always going to think about this even after the podcast today. But I would like teachers to think about why they got into teaching. Okay, if they can find that, and I'm hoping for most teachers, they got into it because they want to help and work with students and develop rich relationships. And the best way to foster those relationships is with the highest quality of mathematics. And that should be what I'm really saying when I said mathematics is dead, that the highest quality isn't there. And if it's not there, then we can't uh, think that we're going to have the best possible outcomes. And we're always thinking about outcomes. But if you put in the highest quality mathematics, a lot of the things, classroom behavior, other things will rise. And that's why, I would say that if you want to uplift students, you have to uplift the mathematics. And if we're teaching mathematics right now, and why I say it's dead, it's closed, all discovered. It doesn't have a past, doesn't have a future. We're talking about literacy. That's great. Factual, procedural, conceptual. What about historical fluency? What about contemporary fluency? What about the 1,000+ math problems which are unsolved? If a couple of them were solved, which ones do you think could affect our lives? There's a couple. We're teaching mathematics in this inert vacuum, which has no past or present. And that's why students historically respond with the anxiety and think it's dead. And until we center mathematics back in, I don't think things are going to change.
Thank you. And that concludes our hot seat debate. I hope this gives teachers out there and other educators some really good food for thought.
Now it's up to our listeners to take a moment, ponder the hot seat discussion, share with friends, and consider what resonated with you. I know for me, I'm going to listen to this episode probably more than I've listened to any other episode that we've had. There's so much to think about, so much to talk about, and I cannot wait to continue this discussion. So if you know Chris and I, reach out to us because now's the time to really discuss, is math really dead? Be sure to go to our Twitter or X at Debate Math Pod to share our thoughts on this debate.
And huge thanks to our guest, Sunil Singh. Thank you for being here, for sharing your passion and sharing your strong opinions in this thoughtful way. I learned a lot just from sitting and listening to you.
Thank you. Yeah, again, if listeners also want to continue the conversation with me, please, you can reach out. I have I, my first website ever. I've never had a website in my entire life. I finally put one on. It's a very easy website to remember. It's www.mathsings.com. My last name is Singh, so I just use Sing, Mathsings with an S at the end. So if you want to connect with me on there and just continue this conversation, or if you want to pick my brain in terms of, are there any specific ideas and, just continue the conversation, definitely available.
And anywhere else listeners can find you?
On Twitter X, I guess I'm there. I'm not. I can't figure out if I want to be there, but yeah, I'm there at Math Garden. I guess I want to be
And
there. It all implodes.
and you have a new book coming out, right?
I have a new book coming out. It's been 3 years in the making. It's a rock music book, which it's called Sonic Seducer, Lust for Life, with our heaviest moments, memories, and magic of rock and roll. My forward writer is Jeff Woods. He's interviewed everybody in the music business, David Bowie, Jimmy Page, Pearl Jam, Pink Floyd, Rolling Stones, and he's already put his initial notes together. And so, yeah, I'm pretty. I think I said it to some of my friends on social media. This is the best book I've ever written, and because music was a passion for me prior to mathematics, but I did look at this book through a mathematical lens to find seconds of songs and how they affect us and all that. So that'll be out the end of the summer.
Okay.
Awesome.
Well,
Can't wait to check that out. Yeah. And as we wrap, thanks to all those who are listening. We hope you enjoyed and learned from this. Thank you all. Cheers.